Today we're going to discuss Trump, the thief in chief. We got a lot of breaking news on his disclosures of his financial transactions, and we know of all the other grifting and illegal acts that we see to make money, like piracy on the high seas and manipulating quid pro quo deals that line his pockets. But the revelation in this release of his financials seems to be dubious. And I don't think it's a full accounting of all his financials, and he has protected himself from further investigation on his financials. And the questions to the U.S. citizen is, why are you allowing this to happen? And how much money in taxes has been avoided by Trump? Shouldn't he pay his fair share? Why do you have to pay your fair share of taxes when the leader of the country does not do the same? I really have a problem with that. And Cal, what's your opinions on Trump not paying his fair share, or the wealthy not paying their fair share and allowed to do whatever they want under this Trump regime?
Trump has never released his tax returns. In fact, he sued the Internal Revenue for billions of dollars because somebody leaked the fact that he didn't pay tax. It was a couple of $100. And then when he
Off all
sued
his
himself,
revenue, and all he had to pay was a couple $100 in tax. That
when he
in
sued
and of itself shows there has to be fraud on the books, because this professed expert businessman that is so great at the art of the deal would have had a lot of profit unless it's a lie. And I think we've seen him lie to the faces of the voters in the U.S. and to the world, and we know he's a compulsive liar, so you cannot trust his taxes to be accurate. And we know he's all about the grift and putting the money in his pocket. And why did he want an exemption from his taxes and being investigated? Because he is and knows he's committed fraud to the government on tax reporting. So on that note, like, he's more than willing to sue me because I said he committed fraud on his tax return. If he sues, he has to disclose it. So bring it on. But back to the real issue is, he made a couple $2 billion in the reporting, and many people believe that he actually made closer to probably $20 billion in all the dealings and nefarious money transactions. And you have to look at it as a family business, and all his family have profited. So it does seem to be a cycle of enrichment by breaching the laws. What happened to that lady? Who the heck was that famous lady that really, in my eyes, didn't do a whole lot but got 5 years in jail? Oh, that would be Martha Stewart. I wonder what she really thinks of this conduct, because she went to jail for what appears to have been, I mean, you can question it. She sold her shares the day before, and the person that said the $60 price tag that she had at her brokers was signed by different ink. But the reality is, this guy was charged with lying, and maybe not on that issue per se, but you can't trust his word in a court of law. So maybe she did have that in, and maybe she shouldn't have been persecuted to the level she was. Now, in hindsight, when you see the level of law going under the bridge and Trump not getting charged with anything, I don't think Martha Stewart should have had a day in jail. And I think, with the light of this new report, Martha Stewart should be able to sue the Securities Commission and the stock market for not giving her a fair trial compared to other violations of this self-regulating quasi-judicial process that gives a private business the right to have a police force, the Securities Commission, and their own judicial proceedings to give the guys that they are fairly trading on stock values, which we know is more gambling than goes on in a casino. So do you have information there, Cal, on what happened to Martha Stewart and what her opinions. There's no new news that I could find.
Well, it was insider trading. She
Yeah,
actually put a buy sell order in just before an announcement, which is chicken chicken crap compared to
yeah.
what
I think
Trump's
it
been
only
doing.
was to save her. Uh, I think my number said it was only like $46,000 that saved her in money,
Well,
and the penalty was 3 times that amount
they
of
were after
money.
her for some reason. You know,
Yeah,
people do that every day and nobody says a damn thing. But for whatever reason, that whoever you know prosecuted that file, they wanted her. That's what they
yeah.
wanted,
It
right?
was $45,673 she avoided for losses, and they went after her, and I think she ended up paying 3 times that amount, and she did 5 years in jail and house arrest and public persecution of her to the nth degree for how dare you. And she did have a legitimate case where she did have a stop loss sale order of $60, and the stock dropped below $60, and then the stockbroker sold it off. But the mistake was the stockbroker had actually phoned her and said, maybe we should be selling your stock, which how would she know what he really knew or not knew? And it's a decision to sell or buy. And this one is a borderline case, in my opinion. I think the fix was in with the Securities Commission, and it's self-regulating police. So there was something else going on, and I think that points to a bigger issue. Can we trust the Securities Commission? They are a private police force for a privately owned entity that gambles on money. So I don't think we can really trust them. Do you trust the stock market and the Securities Commission as a individual that has tried to raise capital for businesses, operations that have not businesses? Do
You're
you
asking
trust
me?
them? Yeah, I'm asking
I
you.
thought you're asking the viewers.
Well, the viewers should have a
I'm,
say in this too, because
I'm,
it's against the law for me to go raise money to offer you Canadian dance. I can't go raise the money needed to open up to offer you the dance lessons of our culture. It's against the law. I go to jail to promote Canadian dance. The same token, I can't raise money to fight the Saskatchewan government for alleged fraud on oil rights that they owe my company, 245,000 oil rights. It's against the law for me to go raise money to fund the lawsuit to try to beat the corruption in the government. So there's a lot of issues that come to light with this privately owned stock market. And a lot of people think it's a government-owned institution. It is not. They've been given laws above the laws. They're a quasi-judicial system within our own legal system to enforce the laws how they want to enforce them. So if you're on the inside and you're working with the Securities Commission and have influence over them, you don't get prosecuted. And this seems to be the big case that all these multi-billionaires that are backing Trump in government, there's a lot of dubious transactions going on right now, and nobody's being charged or brought to the judicial courts of the Securities Commission, and yet we see the violation firsthand. And it's coming out of everybody's pocketbook around the world because these corporations are international. They deal everywhere, and they're getting unfair advantage over local business, and stock markets are privately owned all around the world. So I think it's time that we, asked ourselves, is this really what we want, or should these stock markets be publicly owned and controlled by the public? And I say they should be publicly owned. They should also, as a gambling institution, the transactions, when a transaction occurs for profit, the taxes should be withheld on them just like they do in a gambling casino. You do not make profit in a casino without them withholding the taxes because it's nefarious to the money disappearing. They want their taxes up front. And I think that's what the stock market should be doing, and that would increase your government revenue astronomically, especially on these millisecond profitable sales that AI computers are generating, which in and of itself is a false market. So we know, we can look at a lot of the companies like Tesla, the sales don't justify the price of the stock on the market. So is that fair that somebody should sell hot air and profit and not pay taxes in upfront? I say no. So what's your take on that, Cal? Like, you're a proponent of not letting them get away with all these transactions and profiting.
Well, it should be apparent that there's a rule for the rich and a rule for the poor, and those that are rich make the rules. And
Yeah.
an exception would be Martha Stewart, and apparently her stockbroker tipped her off that one of these biological companies was not going to get FDA approval, and she sold, $250,000 worth of stock prior to the collapse. The stockbroker's assistant was the one that told the Securities Commission that she had dumped her stock prior to the fall on insider information. Now you look at Trump, his accountant went to jail, Alan Weiselberg, and he went to jail for manipulating the books, paying Stormy Daniels, the same things that Conan went to jail for. Now, this was all done for Trump. Trump was the mastermind behind this. He's the big guy, right?
Yeah.
But instead of getting the big guy, they're picking off the little guys all around him.
Well, the Epstein class, they've got goods on so many people. We need to know more about this Epstein list of people that are under the thumb of the Epstein class and being manipulated, because it sure stinks like, a big cover-up and association with the Epstein class.
And if you look at Trump's old mouthpiece there, Anthony Scaramucci, he accused Trump of orchestrating a massive insider trading scheme tied to political announcements that yielded up to 400 million in illicit profits. And what this is, of course, is when they talk about SpaceX and the contracts that they're going to get. When they talk about the price of oil, they buy oil futures just before they close the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah.
These people are stealing in broad daylight.
Well, it's a shell game.
And nobody cares.
Definitely, yeah. And I think that brings back to light that this stock market bullshit has to stop, and it needs to be government run and run by a world organization, like I said, the United Nations or the world government body that needs to be set up because of the ramifications around the world. If the New York stock market is allowing these transactions, all these multi-international corporations compete against Canadian companies, European companies, companies around the world, and they're giving an unfair advantage, and their shareholders are given an unfair profit taking that allows them to buy up other multi-international corporations and control what services are offered to you and me. And that's the underlying thing. This corruption affects every individual on the face of the earth, and that's why you should be paying attention. Now, I'm going to make a point that a lot of people, I don't know, I might have covered it in one of our oil episodes, so you might want to check on it, but the stock market in 2008 announced that they were going to do a change on the way that reserves for oil companies were going to be done, and they said in 2010 it would come into effect, which was sort of a breach of their own laws in my estimation, because it did impact my oil company back then. And what they did was said that probable reserves, which they may or may not exist, will exist on your books in any shale zones for 5 years without ever drilling or proving they actually exist there. And all of a sudden, the asset values of all these oil companies went right through the roof, because maybe reserves turned into real reserves on the books, which, if you go back to the charts, doubled, tripled some of the values of corporations. And to this day, they still have that law on the books. But what that does was it shows there's a history of market manipulation by the stock market, which does not pass the sniff test for a shell game of hiding assets to allow stock market values to go up. And the rationale in 2008 was they needed more investment capital into the oil industry, which, okay, you got your more investment, and then the stock prices all went up, and all of a sudden, after you got all this investment, the stock market prices dropped. And that's stock manipulation, and they announced they were intentionally going to manipulate the stock price in the oil industry. And who paid? We did, because when the values went up, the price of gasoline at the pump went up, and the refining end of the oil industry made huge profits again. And the prices have not come down, but the oil prices have come down, and we're getting shafted again by that one stock market manipulation. And therein lies a problem. To me, that's a breach of the laws of the stock market, and yet the stock market did it themselves. Do you think that's fair, people? I don't. And I think a full investigation could go back into why and how this was allowed, and did it breach the laws of the time, and who should be held accountable. Because a lot of money changed hands. A lot of people got rich that knew of this insider manipulation. The oil companies knew it was coming. They all made nothing but profits, and we, the people, paid for it at the pump. Our gasoline prices went through the roof, and everybody remembers that. Well, we're still seeing this illegal market manipulation through the stock markets, and it's guided by the hand of the President of the United States, is what I see. And when you're allowing criminal activities to occur on the stock market, you're allowing the theft of money from me and you and everybody else without repercussions. That was not the intent of the stock market. That was not the intent of the Securities Commissions Act as a quasi-judicial entity. They said they needed those rights to make sure that everybody was protected on their investments, when in fact they just wanted those quasi-judicial rights to protect the wealthy, so that the wealthy could stock market manipulate against the poor and less wealthy to line their pockets. And that seems to be what's going on. So I put it to the people out there right now watching. Why are we allowing stock markets to be a for-profit business when we should be owning that stock market exchange as governments and regulating it and controlling it for the people, by the people, and not only for the people and by the people of the United States, but for the entire world, because it impacts us all around the world now. And if we're going to be leaders, let's lead. The change is now. We've seen the corruption that Trump has brought to it by his filings, and we need laws and proper conduct in business to ensure an equal, equitable playing field, and we do not have that right now, folks. Cal, do you think we have equitable playing field in business?
Never has been.
Never has been.
Never will be. It's the name of the game. You know,
it's the will of the people. The people can change it. People like me and you have ideas on how to change the legislation and fortify the sanctity of the institution to ensure that it also pays its fair share of taxes, which means what? We pay less. That means if we're smart people, we do the changes so that we pay less and get more. Do you want a higher standard of living? Do you want to enjoy life like the rich do? They don't really work. They have other people do their tasks for them and make 100-fold off their effort. So do you like being the peon that has to do all the work so the rich can enjoy day-to-day living? No. We need equitable laws that make it so we all can enjoy the prosperity of the resources and power of a nation. And that's not happening, folks. You're seeing where it's all ending up in the elite and the wealthy, and that's not right. Let us know in the comments what you think, and maybe you should share, like, or unsubscribe. If you're not watching us, just unsubscribe. I'm tired of seeing these unsubscribers not even clicking for watch time. If you don't like us, unsubscribe. You like us, tell your friends to subscribe. You're hearing it here first too. This talk about the stock market, you will not hear that talk anywhere in the world, because all the businessmen and all the elites do not want to rock the boat with the Securities Commission and tell them, you know, I think you're in violation of your own laws. You're hearing it here because guess what? I've been impacted by the stock market and the inability to go raise money to offer Canadians Canadian dance material that only I have. I researched it. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And guess what? The stock market blocks me. The government blocks me by giving free money and funds to competitors, but they won't give grants to me to bring the cultural material to you. So, yeah, I sort of withhold it a bit, I guess, because it's the only thing I get to say is equal playing field or I withhold knowledge. That's all I can say.
Scaramucci threatening, or stating that, Trump, the White House in particular, the people surrounding him have made over $400 million on this Iranian blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
I think they're undervaluing that.
He'd also make up phony telephone calls where he says, "Oh, I'm in contact with Iran. They've agreed to a ceasefire." The Iranians go, "Nobody's contacted us. We haven't spoken to anybody." And so
the stock market though.
Yes. Now let's pretend for whatever reason, since Scaramucci was only president's Trump's spokesperson in his first term for about 2 weeks, that he's doing this out of some kind of vengeance, and that what he is saying is not true. Trump is litigious. If it weren't true, Trump would have sued him the moment it left his mouth for defamation, and he would have him in court, and he'd be in the Supreme Court of the U.S. in 6 months on this one. And the fact that nothing is happening shows that quite possibly.
Well, it's like correct. Calling Trump a rapist. Trump, you're a rapist. You're adjudicated rapist. You're going to sue me so I can show that you're, all these non-disclosure agreements of women accusing you of rape are legitimate and you should have been in jail because it's witness tampering. Paying a non-disclosure agreement to a witness to cover up a crime is witness tampering. And where's your laws, folks? Oh, the money people don't have to answer to the laws. If I paid money to a witness to silence them against a horrendous crime, and then it allowed other criminal acts to go down, I'd be in jail for the rest of my life, and that's even in Canada. Other countries, you just hung. So, accountability, folks, and this shows the corruption and need for change. And that need for change is definitely something we have to consider and make happen, folks.
Well, we have no say in the matter.
Yes, we do. We have a voice. We got, 10, 20 people watch us? Well, those 10, 20 people, they tell 10 people each, and maybe we'll cause a tsunami. Get your head out of your arses and start spreading the word.
The fact is, you don't get to vote in U.S. elections, so you really have no control over, which means as well, you don't need the plausible deniability that you didn't vote because you couldn't vote anyways.
Yeah, but it affects what happens in the U.S. with multi-international corporations affects every country around the world. And we have laws, like Martha Stewart couldn't go to the UK because she was a convicted felon. Why is Trump allowed in countries? There's no exemption for adjudicated rapists coming to your country. There's no exemption for a felon coming to your country with 34 convictions. There's no excuse for it. You isolate those criminals and that ties their hands on the crimes they can commit. Only those aiding and abetting the criminal acts would allow them in the country. So I think it's time that we as a country said, hey, that's enough. Every country in the world says that's enough, and stop legitimizing criminal activities, war crimes, crimes against humanity. And where's the Epstein files? They've never been released. We as countries can force the release of this information because they human traffic people from all around the world to be the victims of the Epstein class, of which Trump is part of the Epstein class, best friends with Epstein, and he's been intentionally, and the Republican Party, have been intentionally withholding the names of the people in the Epstein file. My question to you folks is, are any of the perpetrators alleged in the Epstein files that are redacted paying money or allowing money transactions with Trump and their companies, or Trump directly, or paying an untraceable money going through cryptocurrency to keep the silence and keep the redacted files redacted when they're supposed to be by law open to the public? And that's, it goes back to, there's one transaction in this list that says Trump bought shares of Microsoft. Well, we know that the Microsoft owner is in the Epstein files and was brought before the House. Now, my question is, as a corporate CEO and major shareholder of a corporation, I do have some ability to say who can own shares in my company. And I would probably never allow Trump to be in a shareholder of any company, public or private, I had. And the reason is he's a felon. First off, you cannot trust him. He is a known liar. Second, he is an adjudicated rapist. I do not want to have a rapist owning shares in my company. What if he's in this room with, my secretary having to do business and she becomes vulnerable? I do not want an adjudicated rapist anywhere near my employees or my staff or my board of directors or anything else. So especially somebody covering up the Epstein files. Now, if you go and say, well, maybe there's a reason that he was allowed to buy shares in Microsoft, and it had something to do with the Epstein files. Maybe Trump has something on the owner of the, of Microsoft. I'm not saying he does or doesn't, but it's dubious, and the transaction speaks for itself. And the stock market should be preventing a felon, a adjudicated rapist, from trading on stocks when he has insider information. The stock market has the power to prevent those transactions from Trump occurring. And then I say to the people, if you lost money on investing in cryptocurrency and Trump's thing, but he profited multi-millions, if you got stung by insider trading on information that Trump and his buddies made money off of, who's responsible? I tell you right now, the Securities Commission is responsible for not enforcing laws. The stock markets that are privately owned that are making nothing but money off the transactions. Every transaction that goes through the stock market, they make lickage and stickage. They're making nothing but money off these alleged dubious transactions. So the stock market should be held accountable. Trump passed laws saying you can't hold him accountable, but you can, as a class action, hold the stock market accountable. And I'm saying to the lawyers in the U.S. right now, why aren't you doing that? Why isn't there a massive class action on the released filings of this 927-page, whatever, release? Why aren't you filing a class action lawsuit against the stock market for allowing stock market manipulation and all sorts of dubious transactions that are costing other investors money? And that is the question to you folks, and you heard it here first. So step up, start that class action. It even affects Canada. So I don't think we're allowed to participate in the class action, but I think the U.S. citizens need to hold the stock market to account.
Trump has done really, really well in his short stint as president on a second term.
I think I like it, where he said we're in the golden age. We're making nothing but money. Life is the best it's ever been for the U.S. I think all he's saying is he's never had it so good. He's never made so many billions, and he's laughing at all the peons in the United States allowing them to make, 10, 20 billion dollars and passing laws that make him untouchable. He is the untouchable. Sorry for cutting you off there, but I wanted to get that point out.
In any event, in 2024, Trump apparently disclosed 622 million in income. In 2025, it's at least 2.2 billion. So he has definitely profited from the time he's been in as president, and that doesn't include things like the $400 million gift that
Yeah.
Qatar gave him in the way of a 747, which
Funny
will
how that
cost
doesn't
another.
show up in there, and the
It,
billion-dollar renovation to it.
and it'll, yes, and then that's the other side. It's never ending. Now they actually have a clause against this in their constitution. It's called the emoluments clauses, and there's two sections to it. One is with respect to foreign gifts, and the other one is with respect to domestic gifts. And what they're founders of their constitution, who the Americans seem to, worship like they were the disciples of Christ, is that you're not allowed to profit from your position of president.
Well,
But
not only profit, but if you're accepting gifts, that means somebody has the ability to bribe you to do favors for them, and that is very costly. To the citizens, your
it's called
tax dollars.
it's called foreign influence,
Well, even
and
domestic influence can be
as
very
well, yeah.
costly.
And Trump has run a pay for play
Yeah,
operation from the very beginning. He grants pardons to people who step up with $1 million. He closes international bridges for a mere fee of $1 million. He shut down a $3-4 billion bridge
yeah,
for a $1 million donation. Like
yeah.
the man is such a thief. He's gone so far past the pale. Yet over 33% of Americans still support him.
And
I,
that,
I, it's astounding.
well, the Democrats are afraid to stir the boat or rock the boat or charge the guy because he has an insurrection army that he has tried to get billions of dollars to. He, gave them all pardons. They all owe allegiance to him, and he has a ICE militia ready to go. And if you step up and say, we're holding you to account for your breach of the law, he said, oh, persecution, persecution. You're only doing it because I was president and you don't like me. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of blood on the streets in the U.S. because it would strike a physical civil war. And that's what Trump is using. It's an extortion tactic to prevent anybody from coming after him or seeking restitution. And I think that's something that the U.S. citizens need to be aware of. And, your actions speak volumes to the rest of us. Why is the Republican Party allowing this corruption to go on? Oh, they're profiting from it. So the entire Republican Party and card-carrying Republicans are nothing but domestic terrorists, international terrorists, and aiding and abetting stock market crimes all around the world. So, live with it. And you, the people, have to step up and change it. Nobody else can. It's up to the American people. We can only boycott you, sanction you, and, when CUMSA deal is not going to be renewed, yahoo! I'm tired of giving away our resources in Canada to the U.S. We can deal anywhere around the world, and let's make them pay fair market value. They've been getting a gift from us for decades, and it's time that stopped. So I'm really pissed when I see this grift going on, and 20 billion possibly lining the pockets of a felon and a educated rapist that we let into our country. I am so disgusted that he was allowed to come to Banff that there's no excuse for allowing that. And when the Epstein files come out, I guarantee you there's direct allegations of rape by Trump against young girls, young women, and he is the scum of the earth. And these religious fanatics, even here in Alberta, there's 20% of these religious fanatics still support a rapist, an adjudicated rapist, and his name is all over that Epstein thing. You should be ashamed of yourselves. If you believe in the Bible and you believe in heaven, I'll tell you what, all those Trump supporters, get ready for a nice hot bath for the eternity. You're going straight to wherever the heck you go, and it will be hot and full of heat. You'll never reach that golden palace in the sky. So, ooh.
So back to Trump's income. 2.2 billion in 1 year, and I would
If you
suggest
can
Bill got.
believe it, if you can believe it, and I don't believe it, I think it's much higher.
Well, let's pretend it's true. How much do you think he paid in tax on the 2.2 billion?
Nothing.
Like let's pretend the average Joe in Canada made $100,000 working at Chrysler for the year. What would his income be?
Well, if you couldn't afford to buy deductions, which a lot of people can't because they're living above their means, it means you're probably paying 35% taxes on that money. If you had the fortitude to buy down your taxes, so the rich and the wealthy can buy down their taxes even more. So let's say you put 40,000 in an RRSP, it would lower your taxes, so you actually would only pay maybe 10, 15,000 in taxes, plus have a savings account that you're later going to have to pay taxes on when you withdraw it. That's a deferment, and it's, even in Canada, it's all designed to benefit the wealthy. If you are a working stiff in Canada and don't have the resources and savings, you can't add to your savings by reducing your tax payment. And that's designed by intent to enrich the rich and make it look like the poor. If you saved real hard, you could catch up. No, you can't catch up. The wealthy have all the laws in their favor, including the tax laws. And you can look at Trump in the States, which Canada models their tax model off of, and how much did he pay? How much did Trump pay in taxes on that?
Oh, the one that got disclosed, the guy that disclosed it went to
Yeah.
jail. It was a couple of $100.
Yeah, exactly. So why didn't Trump go to jail? Oh, Epstein class. He's part of that. The elites have their fingers on the control of all the justice system. Oh, that don't figure. I mean, the Republican Party has the Supreme Court control. They have the House and the Senate control. And they sort of keep reins on their puppet monkey in the presidency, but he seems to do whatever he wants. And they're quite fine with it so long as it's lining their pockets. And it's all about the money, folks.
Now, if Cory, if you made $2.2 billion or $2 billion, let's say, and you paid tax at a 20% tax rate,
I'd be the happiest guy around. I made money.
That would be $400 million. Now here you have a guy that pays $2,000 or $3,000 on hundreds of millions of dollars worth of income. On billions, maybe he'll pay a few more grand. But don't forget, he's also got a deal now with the Justice Department and the Tax Department that they will not audit himself or his family or any of his associates forever.
Which means he can cheat his financials so he pays zero. He probably files saying the tax department owes him money every year, and they have to pay him hundreds of millions every year for having filed a tax return.
Only somebody who intended to cheat would ever attempt something like that, or has already cheated.
He's already cheated so much.
He's a psychopath.
He knows, but he's laughing because people are so stupid in the U.S. They haven't got his ass in jail, and at 80 years old, he don't give a shit anymore, and he's enriching his family, and they're involved, and they should go to jail too, as far as I'm concerned. They should be investigated for charges, and if they're found guilty, go to jail. And I don't think the evidence is going to show that they're innocent. So, there you go. And that's a two-tier system. I can't raise money. Any of you people want to see Canadian cultured dance or heritage? I'll explain it a little bit for you. My great-grandfather was a dance performer and very talented dancer from the early 1900s. He moved west from Ontario to Alberta at the turn of the 19th century. He taught my grandparents taught me. All the knowledge in dance has never changed since about 1930s. Just the music has changed. And we did more dancing as a community function. The only problem was your neighbor, your parents, your grandparents taught you how to dance. And it was all about the fun. So they gave you the basics and say, go ahead and have fun. They never wrote it down. They did no formal writing down of this dance material. Along came American ballroom, in the 50s and 60s. Well, it didn't change the fact that we didn't use those techniques here. And, this is all across Canada. And I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars researching across Canada. Are these techniques valid for Canada? Yes, they're techniques not used anywhere in the world except here in Canada. And there's only a few of us left knowing how to do it because the 1980s invasion of American ballroom, Texas shuffle stepping. Shuffle stepping, that's what 90-year-old people do in the seniors nursing home. They shuffle. So that's stupid dancing. It's not really appropriate for having fun, and it's obviously very boring. So all these dances came up here, and because they had books and experts from Texas teaching it and blah, 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 it was pushed aside. Well, we were told we don't know anything about dancing. I remember being told, you don't know anything about dancing. You're an idiot. You can't dance, blah, 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 trying to push us off the dance floor. Well, it worked. A lot of them quit dancing those techniques. Not me. I'm pretty bullheaded. I'm going to dance with the ladies, and everybody that dances with me is going to have fun. And so the history of it is that, and I know Cal there doesn't dance, so he's not really interested in hearing his rant. But the fact is that, I can't go to the market and raise money because I can only talk to my 3 best friends who aren't dancers. So they're not going to invest in it. I want to open up nightclubs across Canada, supper clubs where we have comedy shows, supper meals. We're not marketing alcohol sales per se because alcohol sales are down and all the venues are going broke. And you can go to Patreon site and see these proposed supper events. We're going to start them as soon as I have money. I don't have money, so I guess they're not going to start. So we're hoping that donations happen on Patreon, and if they don't, guess what? You ain't getting the dances, and you're not getting the Canadian dance material. So, but I can't raise the money. That's the corruption of the stock market. I could do an offering memorandum at best, and I still can't advertise for investors. So you can't invest because I talked about investment capital here, so I can't accept money from any of you. You can donate, but that's it. Otherwise, I go to jail. But Trump don't. Trump don't go to jail. I do. For trying to bring Canadian culture back to Canada. I will go to jail. You want me to go to jail? Hey, anybody wants me to go to jail, offer to buy shares of my company from this rant.
Well, you'd have a lot of time to write your new book.
That's right. So AI is going to write a few books for us. That's our next thing, folks. We're going to let AI help us write a few books on our podcast because you can't get the information we're presenting, like on the stock market insider trading and the stock market seeming to break its own laws. You don't get that anywhere else. You get it here. You don't get, MAGA-gate where the Alberta government is covering up what we see as crimes. So we'll have to say they're alleged crimes, but they're, they look pretty much like crimes to me. And if I was a judge, they'd all be in jail by now. So the corruption in the justice system here in Alberta, it's systemic across Canada, and it's in the U.S. We see it. We model after the U.S. So you don't get that information anywhere else. So I don't know why you're ignoring the facts. And, 20 years from now, people will pull an archive up of us saying, well, that's what we said 20 years ago, and now you're coming aware that, we gave you the information and you ignored it. Stupid is as stupid does, as I always said. And guess what? The smart people are going to be watching our podcast and passing along the information and supporting our podcast. We've asked for guests to step up, and we'll bring you on talking topics that you have firsthand knowledge of. Corruption is our favorite one, but everybody's afraid to speak out because they get persecuted and the perps get nothing done to them. So guess what? We haven't had a guest on yet. Our next guest, you got to watch for an episode coming up real soon, is the No Fault Insurance coming to Alberta. And we're going to bring on Shelly Ann Petts, who we've helped produce, information on her case. And she's stepping up to help fight No Fault Insurance. And we're going to be screwed over if No Fault Insurance comes in because really all they're doing is getting rid of the liability. And we already have Section B that we pay for, and the payouts are exactly the same as what Section B already covers. So guess what? You're going to lose right out of your pocketbook, just like workers injured on a work site lose out of their pockets for the rest of their lives. So it's coming to you, and we're going to bring it to you. Anybody else? Contact us. We want more guests on our show. Well, Cal, anything else on that Trump scandal?
Well,
Any bets he's going to jail after he's
Well,
impeached?
you just wonder how far the guy can go, right? Before people finally wake up and say that we've had enough. Like,
Like he
how,
said in the 1990s, Republicans are the dumbest asses he's ever known, and he could lie to them right to their face, and they'd still vote him in as long as he waved his money in front of them. Well, it's the Republican Party.
apparently that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think part of that psychology though is if you've already got yours, you don't care if anybody else gets theirs. It's me.
Yeah, well, I'm the me. I want to launch this Canadian dance so we protect our culture up here in Canada. 60 below and at cold weather, we used to meet up, greet up, and some guys tried to hook up at these community dances. And down in the States, it's 90 to 100 degrees. They minimalize move. They don't want to sweat, and they just want you to watch the show. We have a different ideology up here. We like to have fun. We're not out to grift and rip people off like Trump and his Republican Party. And that Republican Party movement through the religious fanatics up here has to stop because it's all me, I, and they're all out about lining their own pockets. And that's propping up the separatist movement out here, folks, and that has to stop. I didn't see any, by the way, at Canada Day celebrations. I was out, and none of them came out to anywhere I was. I went to a Legion. I went to different spots. There was no separatists waving their flags. They're going to leave Canada at the Legion. And I think you might want to understand that point in its finest. And the Legion represents the best of Canadians that defended our right to freedom. And there was not one separatist waving his flag anywhere near a Legion. Also went to see the fireworks, and there was no separatist signs anywhere to be seen. And that was in Calgary, folks. So I don't know what happened in your neighborhood of Alberta. Let us know in the comments, or, come on and be a guest and see what you think of this Canada Day celebration without separatists at it. How was your Canada Day out there, Cal?
Fireworks,
Good.
that kind of stuff. Interesting. I'm
Yeah,
not much of I don't like crowds, so I don't
How
go.
they
I don't
scare
go.
all your birds and your pets with all the bang. I can hardly wait till AI is developed enough to run, 1,000 drones and do pictures in the skies instead of fireworks. I mean, you've seen one blast, you've seen them all, but those drones can make pretty fancy displays, and I kind of think that's the future, and it doesn't scare the pets, doesn't scare the animals, doesn't scare cow from going out because of the noise, bang. And I think that's the future of fireworks, is that they be abolished in lieu of drone technology to light up the sky. Yeah, there's some environmental issues with the batteries and the use of energy, but I still say it's better than the pollution from all the gun smoke. I mean, you should have seen the downtown by the Stampede. It was just filthy with smoke, and that's pollution, folks. So I'd rather trade the pollution of the gun smoke for the pollution of the drones and the silence of the drones and the pictures that they can create, because the pictures are infinite. They can have any variety of pictures to make it very interesting. Fireworks, very limiting display. And when you get to be our age, you've seen all the fireworks. There's no new fireworks to be seen. But there's new images by drones. And, just ask the Russians what some of the new images of the drones are for them. They got a different celebration when those drones light up the sky. But that's another issue of itself. So comment, share, like. I think we know that change needs to happen down in the States for Trump and his regime.
Can't come too soon.
No. So act now or forever hold your peace is the old saying, and that's up to the U.S. citizens. You need 70%, well, 66% in the Senate, or you're just wasting the world's time. So act or be shunned. That's your choices. We'll be tariffed, but hey, you'll be shunned by us for your allowing of this presidency to continue. Take care. Lock up your criminals. Lock up your rapists. Lock up your Epstein class. Prosecute those that grift. Prosecute those that lie. Prosecute those that commit perjury. Prosecute those that, geez, I don't know, the list goes on. Commit felons. Don't reward them. Yeah, don't reward the biggest of them. You know, that's what you've done in the U.S. from all accounts anyway. Sure looks like it. Comment, share, like, and we're out of here. Bye.
Bye.
Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and please share the video. Don't be afraid to share this commercial with your friends too.